Today we're going to go over electron configuration. Electron configuration is kind of back a couple chapters when we were talking about the electrons and where they're at, and we did the Bohr model. It's kind of morally associated with that, but it will help us understand why some of the compounds that we've been making actually form the way they do. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the periodic table, and I'm going to go over the different orbitals with you. All right, here's the periodic table. Now, what we've been talking about is the regions of the periodic table. What we need to talk about now is going to be the different regions, but in a different aspect. We're going to talk about them in terms of both energy level, electron location, and the electron orientation, what we call the electron subshells. So we're going to start off with what we call the S subshell. Okay, that's the first two columns. Now, what we have here is we have helium kind of off by itself. We're going to include helium in that, so helium actually belongs all the way over here. Helium is going to be one of our S's. Okay. So anytime I talk about those first two columns, I am talking about the S. I don't know if we can see that real well, but that is S. Okay. Now the next one we want to talk about is going to be the P grouping, or the P subshells. Okay. This one we jump all the way across the periodic table. We're doing the representative elements still, but now we're dealing with this whole section over here. I'm going to try to get that filled in the best that I can. Okay, it's not filling in the best, but I'll come back and I'll get that filled in so we can get a real good look at it later on. Okay, but that's my P subsection. So that is from, on your periodic table, 13 all the way to 18. Now that does not include the helium because the helium belongs over in the S. Now this is called the P subshell. Again, we can't see that real well. I'll come back and I'll give you an example here in just a second. Okay. So the S and the P is going to be what we're going to spend most of our time with, at least at the beginning. Eventually, though, we're going to get down to the D sublevel. Okay, so the D sublevel is going to be our transition metals. And there are 10 of those guys. Okay, and that's per energy level. Each energy level has 10. After that, we have to go on and do the other energy levels, and then we get back to them. So we'll talk about them. That's our D. And then the last region of the periodic table is the bottom one, our inner transitions, and we are going to refer to them as the F. Okay. So they're the F, and there's 14 of those. Okay, as promised, here's the cleaned up version of the periodic table showing our different subshells. You can see our S subshell that we've got labeled in yellow. We've got our P over here in blue, our D in purple, and our F is in the orangey red color. Okay, when I look at these, there's certain numbers that I have to remember. I have to remember that the S subshell can hold a grand total of 2 electrons. The P subshell will hold 6, the D can hold up to 10, and the F can hold up to 14. Those are very, very important numbers. Make sure you get those down in your notes. 2, 6, 10, and 14. All right, other things we need to know. We need to know the term orbital. An orbital is where electrons are paired together. It's basically like a room in a building. Each orbital can hold up to 2 electrons. They don't like to be paired up, but if an electron has to be paired up, it will do that, and they're going to have what's called opposite spin. They don't want to be facing each other, they want to be facing the opposite direction. We'll talk about more about that next week when we're actually doing our lab with it and when we're working through some simple problems. Okay. We need to remember we read the periodic table like a book. So if we're doing really simple ones, let's say up to the element calcium or so. When we're doing those, we just want to read it just like a book and you go from left to right, top to bottom. Okay, I have to remember very important about my energy levels. Okay, my energy levels are going to run down the side of the periodic table. Okay, so you can see my energy levels there. My writing is sloppy as always, but that's okay. So as I read across, when I first start off, I'm going to read with energy level 1. Okay. I'm going to signify that I am in the s orbital or the s subshell by saying that I am in the s. And then I count my number of electrons. Hydrogen has how many electrons? It has 1 electron. So since it has 1 electron, I would refer to that as 1s1. Okay, let's take a look at helium now. When I'm looking at helium, he is also in the first energy level. He's still in the p, so he's s, but he's the second electron, so we'd refer to him as 1s2. Lithium is in the second energy level, so he's 2s1. Now, in order for me to determine, though, what lithium has in it, I have to refer to everything underneath it. And I'm going to show you the more of the examples on that on the board. So let's go to the board. Let's take a look at these different elements and actually figure out what their address is, where those electrons are found at. So what I have here is I have lithium, I have sodium, and I have calcium.
Correction, nitrogen,
now, lithium,
not sodium.
We know is in the second energy level. So I'm going to have to show that I am on the second energy level in my my electron configuration. Here's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to read it just like a book, just like we talked about just a little bit ago. So I have to start at the very beginning. Now, in order to get to lithium, I have to pass through that first energy level. That first energy level only has s's. So it's a 1 because it's the first energy level. It passes through the s, and the s has a grand total of 2 electrons. So I refer to that as 1, 2s. That's my first energy level. It's done. Okay. To get to lithium, I have to go to the second energy level. So I put a comma in here. So that's 2. It is also in the s energy level. But what electron is it? It's the first electron, so the first column. So I would say it's 2s1. So even though this s can hold up to 2, lithium is the first electron. I can do a double check to see if I got the right answer or not by counting. If I count my electrons, which are these little numbers up here, I should get the same atomic number as lithium. So I've got 2, I have 1, 2 plus 1 is 3, lithium is 3. That works out for us great. Okay, let's do another one. Let's see what we get with nitrogen. Nitrogen's a little bit further in the periodic table. Let's see what we have here. Okay, again, I have to pass through the first energy level. So it's a 1s. I pass all the way through it, so it's a 1s2. All right, so now I'm in the second energy level, which is where nitrogen is. Nitrogen's up here in the second energy level in the p shell. So I pass through the 2s, so it's 2s. I pass through both of them, so it's 2. Now, when I get into the p section, is it a 1p or is it a 2p? That's a good question that a lot of people ask. Now, the 1s is on the first energy level. The 2s is on the second energy level. The p is also on the second energy level, so it's a 2p. Then I have to count over to nitrogen. Now, the second energy level, the p energy level, can hold up to 6. But this one doesn't hold 6, it holds 1, 2, 3. So 2p3. So if I do my counting again, 2, 4, 7, nitrogen is element number 7. That works out for us. That's the electron configuration for nitrogen. All right, a little more difficult. We're going to go to calcium now. Okay, calcium is all the way down to element 20. So my total numbers for this one should be 20. I'm going to put that over here because it is a little bit further into the periodic table. All right, so calcium, you'll notice I can kind of use some of these as templates for where I'm going. It's 1s2, first energy level, 2s2, second energy level through the s. Now it's going to pass all the way through the p, the P can hold up to 6 electrons. So if I do my counting right now, I have 4 plus 6, 10 electrons so far. Alright, so now I'm going to move to the third energy level. So I'm going to have that again. I now have, I'm in the third energy level, so it's 3 S2. Then I'm going to have to pass through the P's, 3 P6. So if I do my counting, just see where I'm at. 4, 10, 12, 18. That puts me all the way over here to where argon is. Okay, and I can do the counting on that, and I can look at the periodic table, and I can see argon is element 18. Alright, so now I need to go to calcium. Calcium is located in the fourth energy level. The fourth energy level, it is in the S orbital, and it is the second electron there. Okay, 2 to my 18, which I just had, gives me 20, so now I have calcium, and he's a happy little fella. Alright guys, I've been kind of slacking on the little extra things that I've been giving you on the videos, so I wanted to make sure that I'm throwing you out there something that may help you out grade-wise. Okay, elements 1 through 20. If you can come to class with the electron configurations, showing me that you did the electron configurations. I'm not talking the abbreviated ones, we haven't even talked about those yet, so don't go cheating and looking them up. But if you can give me elements 1 through 20, electron configurations on one sheet of paper, that would be awesome. 10 points extra credit. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it can help you out quite a bit. We'll see you guys tomorrow.